Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. It's Matt Stevens here for another very special We Love Cycling podcast. It's a Tour de France Femmes special featuring none other than our very own Kasia Niewiadoma, who knows the Tour de France Femmes very well. She's finished on the podium twice and last year was Queen of the Mountains. And she talks all about her experiences at the Tour de France Femmes and what to look forward to this year. Hope you enjoy it. Hey, it's working. Kasia, so lovely to see you. Thanks very much for joining us on this Tour de France special We Love Cycling podcast. First and foremost, you're not in a sauna, are you? You're in the mountains somewhere.
Yes, I guarantee you, I'm just in my chateau room. So,
Fantastic. Whereabouts what part of the mountains are you? Where exactly are you? Tell us.
so we are quite close to Annecy. We finished recon of the seventh stage, and tomorrow we're gonna be reconning the last one. So, big 2 days we're having. It's actually a lot of climbing, so it's gonna be interesting tour.
Yeah, so are you actually staying at altitude then at the moment?
We're on like 1300. Tomorrow we
Okay.
will be staying on altitude because we will finish on Alpe d'Huez, of course, and we're gonna just stay up there in the village, which is
Okay.
nice. It's gonna be such a long day, so just going straight into a hotel will feel very nice.
Very nice. Well, I do appreciate you speaking to us today. I mean, as because we're going to be talking a bit about the Tour de France, but before we do delve into your relationship with the Tour, what are your thoughts on stage seven then? Because it's going to be the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift this year. It's got a fantastic route, isn't it? Very flat to the start and then a little bit hilly in the Ardennes, and then it gets super mountainous. That's
Yeah,
right up your street. So tell us a bit about
yeah.
stage seven. What can we expect?
I feel like it's 170 Ks of climbing.
That's so
It's
long, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a long stage. There are not crazy mountains or climbs included, but seriously, it feels like the start is given and you just constantly go up. So, it's like 2 to 3% for most of the stage. Then we have the first climb, and then the descent isn't very fast. It's a descent where you still have to push. So yesterday we did the recon with 3 girls, and it really felt like actually like riding gravel race, to be honest, where you constantly have to be on the pedals.
Okay.
And the last climb, it's not super hard, but when you've raced for already a couple days and that whole stage, I think it's going to be very demanding, but it's very powerful climb where I could see, to be honest, I was just thinking about Marlene Reusser because I think that she has this power to push through climbs like this because it's like 5% ish
Ah,
all the
okay.
time. But yeah, it's nothing steep, but just very grueling for the most part.
Okay, well that's good to have because I'll be on the ground. Obviously, I'll be cheering you on, of course. But it should be a
Yeah.
fantastic race. And well, we know you've had over the last couple of years this brand new race, the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. You've done brilliantly in it, especially last year and the year before. But can you take us back in your Kasia Niewiadoma time machine, if you can, all the way back
Yeah.
to your younger days? Um, can you remember your first memories of the Tour de France, whether it was the Tour de France for women, because there's been various smaller editions over the years, or was it the Tour de France for men that you first became aware of? And what was that like?
Definitely first memory of Tour de France was me watching Alberto Contador. I was a big fan girl of his. I loved his racing style and how he was just dancing on the pedals. And I remember watching the stage and then going out to ride my bike and like trying to learn how to ride like he does, he would do. So definitely he was like my man that I always wanted to look at and cheer for. So somehow he's the main memory of Tour de France for me. Um, I started riding bike when I was 16 years old, 15, 16. So before that, to be honest, I had no idea about cycling. So um, I wasn't like, for example, my partner Taylor, he grew up with cycling, so he has memories of like him being 5 years old and watching the stages. For
Sure.
me, that wasn't the case. I was just oblivious to whole cycling world. But then, yeah, once I found the sport, I definitely dove into it, and I researched some Polish riders, female riders that would ride in Tour de France Femme. It wasn't called Femme, but Feminina, something like this.
Yes, yeah.
But I definitely heard of its existence. And then once I joined Rabobank, I remember that from a very early on, we were always complaining about not having this race. It was always a main topic at the table, like why we only have one stage, one race, and we cannot race for longer. So I think that the hunger was built for so many years, and this main anticipation of when finally we will have this big stage race. So it's, to be honest, very amazing to be in a place where I can experience both parts of like not having that race to like waiting to finally have it, racing it, and feeling the atmosphere and seeing how this race impacts women's cycling. So I think it like we are creating history right now, and it's really great to be part of it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, would you think then that in your early racing days, ultimate, I know because we've spoken before about you racing and just riding in the mountains near where you lived in your small village and wanting
Yeah.
to ride your bike, but do you think the Tour de France was one of the things that you looked at and you thought you want to be a professional cyclist? Did it inspire you that much, or was it one of many, many things that inspired you to become a professional ultimately?
Mm, I think that Tour de France was race that I felt that was creating a difference between women's and men's cycling, because I could see how much attention that race was bringing.
Yeah.
And I felt that we were missing out on something, or we were just like, kicked out of the party. And but it's interesting because I feel like we were waiting for so long to have this race. So once it happened, like everyone was celebrating so much and is still celebrating that this race became so big in just 2 years time. It became big the year it was organized.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
And what do you what's been your biggest, one of your most emotional moments of the two editions, of the only two editions there've been so far? What's one of your most abiding memories that to do with the fans in particular that sticks with you even now?
Yeah, I think the first stage of first edition, we started in Paris, and the way how we were treated, it was so much different to all the other races. There were a lot of fans because people were waiting for men's Tour de France to finish, and the way how everything was organized and prepared for us, and we just felt like we entered new era. So that
Yeah,
was very special. But from personal point of view, I think that last year's Tourmalet stage was very like a big day for me, emotional day, and also for my team because we had a great day and that day. And after such a big effort, we also learned that we got polka dot jersey, and that was like a nice surprise. And we
yeah.
knew that it wouldn't be taken away from us because the next day we had time trial. So I just remember everyone being so happy, and as if the pressure and some sort of stress just went away. And I felt like, of course, I'm not the strongest in time trialing, but there was so much faith around and so much belief that I can do it, that I remember just like going to sleep. It was so late because the stage started at like 4 p.m. And by the time we finished everything, I think it was like 2 a.m. But I was like completely stress free. I was like, okay, we got this. And it just like everything was flowing and felt right. So yeah, the whole weekend was amazing because then we stayed with the team in France, and we had great celebration, everyone loosened up, and it was very nice to see my teammates also from other side, where they just purely celebrate and nobody is thinking about recovery or having to perform next day.
That's one of the things, isn't it? Generally about professional cycling, though, isn't it? That even when it's difficult to truly celebrate success sometimes because you have to stay fit, you have to stay focused,
Yeah.
and quite often the next event is only a few days away or a week away. That
Yeah,
must have been really nice to really relax. Because I remember I saw you guys
exactly.
in the
Yeah.
car park. Everybody had the polka dots on, didn't they? You had the
Oh yeah.
flag. Because I was
Yeah.
there. I saw you. I was so happy for you guys. But there are moments that you,
Yeah.
you need to actually make time for that, and that's important that you guys did that.
Yeah, exactly. It was really nice because there are so many days where, like even this year after Flesh Ballon, we wanted to celebrate, but a couple days later we had Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and then straight into Vuelta a España. So I still haven't celebrated that victory yet. So I'm like waiting until Olympics and Tour de France is finished so I can loosen up. But I feel like we're just like building, the vibe and anticipation. It's like the Tour de France, you cannot have it too quick. You just have to wait for it, and then it feels amazing.
That's going to be a big party. That is going to be a big, big party. That is for sure. But just going back to that Tourmalet stage, you had a tremendous day. You went on the attack early on the climb, and I think it's fair to say you had one of your best days on the
Mhm.
bike. But were you? I mean, the day was incredible because of the weather conditions as well, wasn't it? I remember
Yeah.
we could hardly even. I think we nearly lost the car. I mean, we had only smaller problems than you riding up, but we couldn't find the car. It was so the mist was so
Yeah, it was
close. But
crazy.
can you remember the fans much, or were you just focused on your own job? Because having ridden
Mm,
myself, sometimes you're just on your own, sometimes you're worried of the fans. But what was that experience like for you? What was your
yeah.
relationship like with the fans? Because there were thousands and thousands of people, weren't they, watching just the women's
Yeah.
race?
Yeah, last 5Ks, actually, I was really surprised with the amount of people on the side of the road because it was so ugly outside, it
Yeah,
was raining, was misty. You couldn't hardly see anything. So I thought that everyone would be gone, but people were still camping. So that was super cool. And then, of course, closer to the top, the roads was narrowing. So fans were even closer. And definitely for the first time, we could experience the real, like, mountainous fan vibe because people were so close to our faces, screaming and like uh, just cheering us up. And to be honest, when you're so tired, you don't acknowledge anything, but there's like just this noise and vibration. And then I remember going into the last 500 meters because then it was all barriered out, so fans couldn't get there. And it was like going from this crazy noise to like nothing.
right.
So the interesting transition. And yeah, then the stage was finished. But definitely it was, yeah, very special.
Yeah, they're the sorts of memories that will last for the rest of your life. Those sorts of memories. I mean, you've had a already had. You're still young, but you've already had a very successful career. But you're creating these memories, and the Tour de France to
Yeah.
be a part of that of the legacy that you're creating as well. Because are you aware? What would you actually? It's a good question. What would you like to leave behind as a legacy, especially to inspire young women racing in Poland, for example, young female
Mhm.
cyclists? Are you aware of a responsibility to do the right thing and to race as hard as you can for another generation as well in the Tour de France?
Yeah, definitely. I think that every single cyclist wants to inspire others because we are inspired by other riders, not only the riders that retired, but the riders that are still around us. So I think that at least my main goal is to inspire others in a healthy way. I want
Yeah,
to show people that sport can be done in a way that doesn't cause any harm to your body, like not going crazy with being extremely skinny or doing things that would make people think that they have to do something insane in order to win races. That's why I think that Jamie Vollering is a great model to emulate because she's so strong and powerful and she wins races. It's not that she does extreme things and that puts her on the edge. She's just very
sure.
strong and powerful. And I think that's also one of my goals to just show that with pure strength, you're winning races, or with like following your gut instinct, or just being in some ways impulsive, but in a good way. I
Yeah,
think that I was always inspired by people who were not afraid to attack or to do things that were not calculated.
yeah,
So I think that um yeah, I like to think that I'm this kind of rider and that there's a group of younger riders that are similar to me, and we can kind of resonate with each other.
It's very cool. You talked about inspiring riders, and you've said that there's some. Who inspires you now, or what rider do you look to? Is it Demi, or are there other
Yeah,
riders that you
yeah.
really look to? Do you think it's Demi who is an inspiration to you?
I think that Demi, Elisa Longoborghini, Lotte Kopecky, all the riders that are stronger than me inspire me because they inspire me in a way that I want to be better than them, to beat them eventually. But it's because I know how hard it is. I know how much pain I experienced during the race, and then to see them going above that,
Yeah,
it's like, of course, it's nothing you want to have happening because that means that you're not winning bike races. But on the other hand, you also see how much work they put into that. So you of course want to be amongst them. So that's like a mutual inspiration. And yeah, there are also other sports that you see amazing athletes, and I feel like once you just follow, because I think that what's amazing about women's sport is that on the one hand you see very innocent, like good looking, for example, woman that takes care of her body, but then on the bike she's like super feisty and she would do anything just to win the bike race. Like you have two faces. So
yeah, yeah,
and I see that with a lot of riders or athletes. Yeah.
yeah. It's well, just you're talking about the riders that you inspire that you said that beat you, but this year you've had a good year. Like, I was earlier on. I was just looking through the classics results from this year. You must be very pleased to win one, of course, to win Flesh for the first time, but then second in Flanders, beating all of SD Works. I mean, you must feel a great deal of contentment, especially that confidence taking you into this next edition of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. You must be feeling more inspired and more confident than ever. Is that fair?
To be honest, I think that confidence is something that you constantly work on because it
Sure.
really depends on the day. Um, I think that yeah, spring campaign was great, but this is like the bad thing of every athlete that we have is that we want more. And
Yeah, yeah.
I know that still things I could have done better or I could have improved. But yeah, definitely spring was really great. And usually what I do after each race is I just like write down notes of what happened, why I didn't win, or why somebody was stronger than me. What did they do? So uh, after having done the whole spring campaign, I have quite a lot of good notes on my competition of
Oh,
like
right.
how,
Okay.
yeah, like what Jamie did in certain situation. For example, last year that allowed me to be able to stay with Annemiek and Jamie when Annemiek attacked on the climb before Tourmalet, because usually anytime she would attack, I would just crack from seeing her in the out of the saddle because she would like be out of the saddle for 3 minutes plus. So that was the thing I was training with my coach beforehand. So now coming to Tour de France, I also have like some notes. I know what others are better than I, and this is something I need to work on in order to be there.
That's fantastic. That's really really interesting. I mean, okay, here's a completely different sort of question. Um, ASO come to you. There's a phone call, and they say,
Yeah.
Cassie, we'd like you to design. I have asked other people this question. I just wonder what you'd think. We're going to design the Kasia Niewiadoma Tour de France Femme stage. Where would it be? What would it look like? You can have free range on designing the stage. How many kilometers, the terrain, the parkour. What would the Kasia Niewiadoma Tour de France stage look like?
Oh, that's interesting. To be honest, I think I would go for something like the classic style. I
Okay.
wouldn't go for big mountains. Actually, I saw that the next year, first three stages will start close to Bretagne
I
area.
saw that. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So actually that's the part where I really like racing. So if it was somewhere close to Plouet, say 160 Ks.
Oh, I've lost you. Oh, hold on. Oh,
Oh,
oh, I've lost
Okay.
you. Can I ask you to ask
Yeah.
that one again? Sorry.
Yeah.
You just we can they'll just edit this. So I'll ask
Okay.
it. Actually, if you just answer about that question, they can just cut it there. So go.
Yeah. Um, I really like racing around Plouay area, so I definitely would go for say 160 Ks on a short laps, say like a 10 to 15 kilometers lap with a lot of punchy climbs in it. So it's basically like a very intense up and down stage on a short lap. So that also allows a lot of people to see us coming through the finish line multiple times.
Fantastic. That sounds good. That's I do like. I mean, it's quite a common answer actually. It's like a mini world championship circuit.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
Yeah, they're the ones that are great for the crowd. And if you're a certain
yeah,
type of rider, they just slowly get harder and harder and harder. And clearly, that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
type of that's the type of
Exactly.
ride that you definitely, definitely. If there was, what advice would you give, or a few pieces of advice you'd give to a young rider who wanted to do what you're doing now, Cassia? What would the advice be to give to him or her?
Mm, I would say to just go outside and ride a bike without focusing too much on technology or all the marginal gains that pros are chasing. I would say like give yourself few years to just fall in love with cycling, to be passionate about it, to understand why you love riding a bike and just to play around, have good group of friends. And then once you're a bit older, then dive into all the numbers and like the technology that is around cycling. Because I think that if I could go back in times and be young rider again, I would just like to spend a lot of time outside with my friends, goofing around, because that's the beauty of sport at the end of the day.
I couldn't agree more. One of the things that when I was racing is just the racing was great, but it's more the before and the after with your teammates having fun
Yeah,
in the changing rooms at the start, in the team bus or
yeah,
wherever, in the hotel. It's the camaraderie, isn't it? I think that any sport generally brings, but I think it's keeping the enjoyment there, isn't it, as well? And you were talking about
yeah,
being
exactly.
inspired by riders, and it's riders that clearly enjoy riding and racing because racing's hard, but keeping the
Yeah.
enjoyment is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because when I was a bit younger, I definitely went through rough patch, let's say, where I didn't know if I wanted to ride or if I wanted to retire. And when I was not very happy in the sport, I just felt that I couldn't be myself in the race and I couldn't do my best. I was just waiting until the race is finished or waiting until my training session is finished. And once I overcame that and I started to feel like I love cycling again, then like everything feels different. You don't mind doing extra hour or suffering more or being away from home because it just feels like everything has a purpose and the purpose is like your dream. So I think that is very important to just feel content and happy with your current situation and your choices at the end of the day.
Sure. Well, just leading off the back of that, my final question. Now, there's a little bit of time until obviously the men's race is only a couple of weeks away. The women's race is in the middle of August. But how do you get yourself mentally focused ahead of the Tour de France? Um, is it different than any other? Do you treat it differently than any other race? Are there certain things
Mm.
that you do? And I know you like to meditate. We've had this conversation before, but just explain a little bit about your mental preparation ahead of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift.
To be honest, I just need to be in the mountains. Once I'm in the
Okay.
mountain, then everything is good. I'm super fortunate with the fact that my team allows me to be very flexible with my preparation. So usually I just go to Andorra. I'm in the mountains. I train hard, but I feel like everything slows down around me and I have plenty of time on my hands and I don't feel like I'm rushing to get something done. So it's like it gets a little isolating, but that's what I need in order to then be able to dive into team environment and do it, like deal with all the media and all the extra things we have to do around Tour de France that normally we don't do. I feel like I have 3 weeks to fully charge myself. So then when I come to a race, I'm just like ready to race and ready to get everything started. So it's like going from one extreme to another extreme.
Fantastic. Well, Kasia, thank you so much for your time. I'll be seeing you at the tour in a month or so's time, maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks time. All the very best in your training
Thank
up
you
to
so
that
much.
point, and good luck and thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for the call. Thank you for
Cheers.
having